Thank you for coming back to the story. Here's chapter 2.
I had been an adult already for a couple years when I found myself crawling across the hard, cracked ground using my helmet as a plow and dragging an M16 rifle, all while the sergeants hovered around us wearing the old woodland camo pattern, and they just kept yelling, "Keep your head down, keep that weapon out of the dirt." And the taste of dirt was just filling my mouth, just drying out my tongue, and I could feel it all across my teeth. And they just kept yelling, "You'd all be dead by now." And I was thinking, well, does that mean we can stop? After a 4:30 a.m. wake up, this is how I spent many of my days in the training pipeline to earn my blue beret as a member of the Air Force Security Forces. We did a lot of this ground combat training stuff because the Air Force didn't have ground soldiers to speak of. So somebody needed to be trained to defend the air bases. I had hoped to be a firefighter, but my recruiter told me that in order to get into the Air Force faster and have a good chance of being a firefighter, I needed to sign up under the open category, and so they made me security forces. In hindsight, it was clearly a lie, but I like to think that maybe he wasn't just trying to pad his numbers. Maybe after looking at my resume and my high school transcripts, my recruiter was like, "I'm doing this kid a favor." And he clearly did, although I wasn't mature enough to admit that until many years later. Because while I didn't enjoy the physical and rigid nature of the training and it left me tired and a bit resentful at the end of the day, I could feel deep down in my little black heart a little sense of pride and purpose growing, and I had never really felt what that was like before. Our instructors did the classic break you down to build you up kind of thing, right? We went from questioning whether we were even potty trained to believing that someday we were going to be standing in the Rose Garden at the White House while the leader of the free world hangs the Congressional Medal of Honor around our necks. And it felt good. And that's how I felt when I was reminded that North Korea and South Korea are technically still at war. And let me tell you, I wished Kim Jong-il would. So when I arrived in Korea, my posture was straight, my boots were shiny, I was ready to go. But as every junior enlisted troop knows, the key to surviving those early years and being successful is show up to work on time, and you always bring your low expectations with you. That way, you don't get disappointed. I arrived at Kunsan Air Base in South Korea in the spring of 2000. And one day we were doing a detail. There was about 10 of us, and we were tasked with rebuilding a defensive fighting position out of sandbags and then laying the concertina wire around it, which is those big coils like a giant slinky of really sharp wire as a deterrent, laying it around the position. And I still was, had my high and tight, standing up straight, still super motivated, and I was taking charge of this detail because I wanted it to get done faster and correctly, right? And at one point, this senior airman, an E4, right, with 3 stripes on their arm, says to me in a mocking tone, he says, "Hey, Sarge, where should we put this wire?" And I knew he was mocking me, so I just played along and I answered him and I told him where to put the wire. Now, the funny thing is that not only was I not even close to being a sergeant, I only had 1 stripe. So I was an E2. I was actually the lowest ranking member of the detail. So I was being teased because I was still kind of gung-ho. It was one of those tell me you're new here without telling me you're new here kind of things. So a few mornings later, my inflated confidence and I got up, got dressed in the Air Force PT uniform because I had found what I thought would be the perfect fuel for my growing ego. So I stepped out of my dormitory right there on the coast of the Yellow Sea and walked through the thick, smelly air across the base to the running track in the middle of the base. There were already some senior NCOs there wearing their berets and holding a clipboard, and then a few other airmen gathering around in their PT uniforms as well. This was going to be the tryouts for what was called Defender Challenge, where all the security forces squadrons throughout the Air Force all around the world were holding tryouts for competition based on physical fitness and combat skills. And if you made the team, then you got to be excused from your normal duties and you were assigned a coach, and the 4 of you just trained for a couple months. That's all you did in preparation for the competition in the Pacific. It was going to be all the bases in the Pacific competing in Guam. Because leadership held these competitors in these competitions in really high regard, I was like, all right, this is my goal. I'm going after this. Now, one thing that I was a little bit slow to catch on to was that, at least among the junior enlisted in this career field, Extra initiative was seen as kind of sucking up, especially if it had to do with something, physically challenging. There wasn't a whole lot of interest in doing extra. And that's okay. Some people are just content serving quietly and honorably, and they don't get offended when other people would call us the chair force. But I liked doing more, taking that little extra initiative, because I had tapped into something here that I had never experienced before. I was feeling a sense of purpose, and it felt good. And I felt like, for me to really reach my potential as a grown man, I needed to have wins like this. Like, I needed to make this team. The turnout was a little bit disappointing. There was only 7 people, but secretly I was a little bit relieved because 7 people competing for 4 slots on a team, I liked those odds. So they put us to the test with push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups, and they recorded all our numbers. And of course, you could get a feel for how everybody else was doing. I'm sizing them up. And my numbers are average. I'm hanging in there. Then it comes down to the 2-mile run, okay? Always the hardest part. And this was a really odd track because of the layout in the field that it was at. It was a Franken track, I call it, because it did not in any way resemble an oval quarter-mile track. Here, take a look. This is the actual track from Google Earth. You can see there are literally 180-degree turns in this running track. So I'm not feeling super good about this. And you know how it is, the nervousness, the butterflies are just really just bunching up in my stomach. And I'm starting to think, man, why am I putting myself through this, And so let me read to you what I wrote in the manuscript. It's only 2 miles, but that's enough distance to get lapped. And if I want to put up a respectable time, I need to descend into complete misery for about the next 15 minutes. My blood pumper will curse my pride and threaten to quit as it hammers the sides of my skull. The soft tissue in the back of my throat will dry rot and crack under the oxygen demand. A cough, a swallow, any missed breath will induce panic as my brain sounds the alarm that I'm suffocating. My scorched lungs will gasp uncontrollably to feed determined legs. Then the side cramping nausea will set in and last for an hour afterward unless my abdomen convulses to expel stomach acid through my burning throat and nostrils. Okay, let's go. Does that sound like fun? Oh, the things we do for our egos. So I ended up finishing in 2nd place, also known as the first loser, and I ended up making the team. And as I said, we had a coach assigned to us, the 4 of us, and that's all we did is we trained every day. Most days we started out in the pool at the gym before it was open to everybody else, so they hadn't cleaned all the bugs off the surface yet, so that was nice. We'd go from the pool to the gym for weights, squats, pull-ups, all that kind of stuff, and then we'd go out to the firing range, and we fired so many rounds that I literally got blisters on my finger from just pulling the trigger so much on M9s, 9mm handgun, M16 rifles, and M243 machine guns. So that was a lot of fun, a belt-fed machine gun target practice. So we really had a good time. And of course, there were lots of combat exercise drills, like fire team drills, running through the base, hiding behind cars and buildings and stuff like that with their faces painted. And so, of course, we would attract attention from like other troops that had no idea what we were up to. And then the time came to prepare to go down to Guam. So the squadron leadership invited the team of us in, and there was a bunch of people gathered around, and they gave us these team shirts, these black. So check it out. I just realized I still have this 26-year-old shirt because I'm sentimental like that. And then they gave us plane tickets, and I could see how much they spent on the plane ticket. It was something like $800, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is a big deal. So I was not used to the idea of anybody investing any money in me with the expectation that I'm going to win at a competition, because I didn't really play sports as a teenager. And in the 8th grade, I played baseball. I was on a baseball team, and I remember just going up to the plate, just like I was so scrawny, I was just scared to get hit by the ball all the time. That's all I could think about. To think that like somebody's spending money on me to compete, and they're all rallying behind us, I felt a lot of pressure. I'm like, man, I better make the worldwide team, because that's what it was about. Not only our squadron competing against the other squadrons, but they were going to take the top 10 out of all those. There's going to be about 35 people, I think there was. Top 10 were going to go on to the worldwide competition down in Texas. It was actually going to be in my hometown, San Antonio. So I would get a free trip back home to visit family and friends. So I had a lot riding on this. So I'm feeling a lot of pressure, not just what I need from myself and for my own development, but for, the rest of the squadron. Everybody's going to know how I did. If they all see me again a week later, well then obviously I didn't make the team. And that's chapter 2. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm curious what you think so far, so please leave me a comment if you feel inclined. And hope to see you back for chapter 3. Bye.